Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Tracy, and this is a week 8 update. So for today, I thought it would be fun since it's week 8. I've been trying to think of what to do for this update, and usually I film a couple weeks in advance, and I've just fallen further and further behind as life has been incredibly busy. So I thought really quickly I would talk for week 8 about how I got this house. About a year ago, a year and a half ago, about a year and a half ago, my partner and I were thinking about moving. I started kind of posing the question to my mutuals on Instagram. What are some really cool, small, historic towns in the US? Like, where should we move? And I compiled a list and a map of all of these recommendations that I received. I can't even remember how many recommendations there are, but people wrote in that, hey, you should check out this town, you should check out this town. Well, someone wrote in, you should check out Quincy. I was like, okay. I looked at it and I was like, oh, lots of really cool architecture, a lot of history here. Seems like a really interesting place. Fast forward to December. Not even December, I think October. I have a friend who works at a company in Chicago, and she sent me this job listing for a business here in Quincy. And she said, you should apply. This is exactly what you do. And I read the job listing and I was like, that does sound like something I do. So I don't know, Quincy's kind of far away, but we've been talking about moving, and I really want to get into historic preservation. I don't know. So I sat on it for a couple of months, and she kind of poked me again in December and was like, hey, you should apply for this job. So in the time span of, I think, a week, I applied for a job. I got the job, and I was starting work in January. So I went back and forth between, should I rent? Should I buy a house down there? Houses are cheaper in Quincy than they are in Chicago by quite a bit. So I kind of just started looking at real estate listings and websites. There wasn't a lot available, and I know now why there wasn't a lot available on websites like Zillow or something like that, because real estate agents down here don't list on those sites. They only list on their MLS site. So I started looking and I was like, wow, there's some really cool houses. There are a lot of houses down here for under $100,000. There have even been some houses down here that have been listed on Cheap Old Houses, which I thought was cool. So I connected with someone through Instagram who is from Quincy, and she's very passionate about historic architecture and preservation. And so we started talking back and forth, and I would send her listings that I was interested in. And then one day she sent me this listing for this property and said, this house is available. It's really cool. You should consider it. And I was like, oh yeah, I looked at that house. I just don't know. And I was still waffling back and forth between, should I just rent and figure things out down there? My partner was saying, just rent a house and see if you like the job, and you don't want to move down there if you don't know if you like the job. Spoiler alert, it turns out that I like my job. And I've been at the company for over 6 months now, and it's working out great. So in January, I finally just say, okay, I'll be a little upset with myself if I don't at least contact a real estate agent and try to put an offer in on this property, because I think it was listed for 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks they like dropped the price by $20,000, and I was like, oh, there's no way this property is gonna last. So after I think about 4 weeks, it was showing that it was still on the market, and so I contacted a real estate agent, and I think the day I contacted them, they said, oh yeah, that property went under contract. The rectory went under contract. So I was a little sad. I'm not gonna lie, I was bummed for sure. But I inquired about a few other properties. Those were also under contract. So, I said to myself, pump the brakes. It's okay. You don't have to find something right away. In fact, you can rent, and it's not the end of the world. Something better will come along. So I would go through the listings that I received, every couple of days. There would be a new listing on the MLS. Nothing was really catching my attention. Nothing was really interesting me. Nothing was historic enough for me. Until one day, I got an email, an update in the MLS, and this house was active again. And I nearly fell out of my chair. I texted my real estate agent so quickly. Is this a glitch? Is this for real? Am I really seeing this? Is this back on the market? It was. This very house back on the market. The deal had fallen through. I was a little nervous that maybe something had come up in an inspection, but the potential buyer did not have their funding for whatever reason, and they also ran into a permitting issue with the city. So I said to my real estate agent, let me think about it for, let me try to get my ducks in a row. I already had financing all ready to go. We used the same mortgage broker that we've used for a couple other properties that we've bought. So I was all pre-approved and ready to go, but I was like, had to have some really serious conversations. Is this something we can do right now? Is this even a good idea? What's the market supposed to look like in, 5 years? Are we gonna see another recession, another market crash? What's happening? So long story short, less than 24 hours after it went active, it was back under contract because I put an offer in on it, and it was accepted within like 20 minutes, I think. So that was really the first roller coaster. There were so many other roller coasters. Everything kind of was looking really good, and then right at the last minute, we're getting ready to drive down to Quincy from Chicago with the dogs to close on this property, and the appraisal came through. We had been waiting weeks longer than we should have been waiting. The appraisal came through, and the house appraised for less than what they were selling it for. And if you've ever bought a house, that means that the bank is not going to give you a mortgage, essentially. So in order to get around that issue, there was a lot of back and forth negotiation between the seller and us, and the seller's agent and our agent, trying to negotiate a way that we could get this deal to close in the week, like days, I think. I don't even think it was a full week. I think it was like days before we were supposed to close. We ended up reaching an agreement, obviously, because I'm here. We ended up reaching an agreement, and the seller came down on the price, and we made up the difference in our down payment. So we were able to cover the costs enough that the bank would give us the money, and we could buy the property, and everybody kind of walked away from the table happy. So we came down here, we went through closing, we got the keys, and walking through the doors, my partner had not seen this place in person, and I had only seen it one other time, and that was for the inspection. Walking in was a surreal experience because I don't know if you are like me, but for me, this is a lot less about home ownership and more about home stewardship. I didn't walk in to this space and think, how am I going to change this to suit me? I walked into this space with just like, I don't even know how to describe it, like a heavy. I walked into this space with kind of like a heavy reverence that, okay, it's real. I'm now taking care of this house and this property. So every decision that I've made since closing is really just all about stewardship of the grounds, stewardship of the building. How can I get this, what deferred maintenance do I need to address to get this house back on its feet, to get this house preserved, like to set this house up to be preserved when I'm no longer the steward of it. Okay, I'm rambling now, but that is my week 8 update. That is the story, very brief. I tried to keep it brief. Very brief story of how I purchased this rectory. I've been here for 8 weeks, off and on, but for the most part, we're starting to make some headway. We're starting to make some progress. So I think the only other update I have for this week is I broke my tripod. So I have to hold my phone with my hands. That's exciting. And I'm getting ready to order some wallpaper for the butler's pantry, which is very exciting, actually. So hopefully that comes in and I can get to working on part 2 of the butler's pantry project. And in the meantime, thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed and supported this channel so far. I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate those of you who are following along. If you have any questions, feel free to put a comment down below and I will answer. All right, everyone. Again, I'm Tracy, and that was my week 8 update. I'll see you all next week.